Are you looking for valuable business advice to reach that 7-figure revenue mark? Do you want actionable tips to properly navigate through every business challenge you encounter along the way? Let Tersh Blissett and Josh Crouch be your guide in getting you to the top here at Service Business Mastery. Tune in as they sit down with world-renowned authors in business, leadership, and personal growth who share valuable insights about management, marketing, pricing, human resources, and so much more. Let their nuggets of wisdom gold guide you in owning a thriving, profitable, and ever-growing business. Here are your hosts, Tersh and Josh.
What's going on, everybody out there in podcast world? I hope you're having a great day. You're listening to or watching the Service Business Mastery podcast. And today's show, well, I don't have Josh with me. We're doing it off schedule a little bit. We normally record on Wednesdays, but today's Monday. And this Wednesday will actually be at the Epic event in Las Vegas. So we wouldn't be able to record on Wednesday. So I had Mr. John Ellis come on the show with us today. John's a great guy. I've known John for years and years. And I don't know why he's never been on the show before. I send him in. No, I'm just kidding. I don't send him invites. We see each other, and every time we talk, we're like, oh, man, let's get together. And then my schedule gets goofy. And yeah, I'm super excited. If you don't know who John is, he talks a lot about indoor air quality, but a lot about training in general. And so I want you to pay close attention to everything that John has to say here, because indoor air quality and just in general can get kind of goofy with say this, don't say that, snake oil over here. But John kind of debunks all of that stuff. And he's rubs elbows with guys like David Holt. David's been on the show before. He's a great guy. These are the people who are genuinely just really good dudes in the industry. And they're not ones to teach you how to sell based on like drop the pen above their hand and have them grab it and sign the paper. Like, they're just not these people. So, and I really value the advice that they give. But with that being said, I'd like to welcome John to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for those who don't know who you are, what your background is and everything, would you mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
No, not at all. So I've been in the industry for 40 years. I'm a recovering contractor, if you will. I had a contracting business in California where I offered very high-end design and implemented systems. But my niche business, if you will, was creating clean, healthy indoor environments for people that were severely respiratory compromised. So with along with the daily drags of doing HVAC contracting with service and writing contracts and maintenance agreements and all that stuff, I was very fortunate to create this kind of a side business of helping people. So along with the stuff that I did, I've been a HERS rater, I've been a air balance technician, system performance, commissioning agent for Leeds buildings, and just on and on and on. And it's led me down this path of performance. And that's what we base everything that we do on. It's got to be performance. If you don't test, it's just a guess. Everything needs to be performance driven. And through testing and commissioning, we're able to achieve the results that we want. So fast forward, I sold my business in California, and I moved to the mountains of New Mexico. I live in a cabin at 7,400 feet. I don't have a whole lot of neighbors, but I get to go out on the road, and I'm actually, as you can kind of tell, I'm at a hotel right now, and I teach indoor air quality for Daikin Amana Goodman. I also have a consulting business where I get to go out and work with clients all over the United States. I'm working with a client right now in Texas, another one in Pennsylvania. When I leave here in Tinley Park, Chicago, Illinois, that's where I'm at today. I'll be visiting a client in Wisconsin on my way to Minnesota. So
Wow.
I get around. But I'm also a business coach and field service trainer for the new Flat Rate. And those of you that don't know who they are a flat rate menu pricing company. We don't do price books. We are a software and process development company that's geared towards helping people buy. They kind of buck the system as everybody's all sell, sell, sell. Well, they've
Yeah.
spent a lot of energy and time examining and researching how people buy, what that buying experience is, and translated that into a system that, quite frankly, you put a menu in front of them and say, "What should we do?" and allow them that buying experience. That's very simplified, of course.
So there, if you've experienced the new flat rate in the past, it's not the same new flat rate even from 2 years ago, is it? They've
Well,
changed
yeah,
up a lot, haven't they?
well, Rodney Cope
Mhm.
developed the system, I think, like 12, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And as in any business, there's been an evolution, and it was paper, but now it's all, with technology, it's tablet driven. But they use what's called verbal packaging. They spend a ton of money on and research on linguistic psychology,
Oh,
and
really?
how words are spoken and how words are received.
Hmm.
Less is more, and how you carry yourself when speaking to people, and then following this process. But with that, I had the distinct pleasure. Rodney and I locked ourselves in a room for a whole week, and we created the building science indoor air quality module within the
Oh,
new flat
wow.
rate system, and we
Oh, that's
put it.
cool.
It's been through beta testing. We took about 20 contractors, put it in their hands, and with training, one of the prerequisites is that you take my IAQ class,
Uh-huh.
and they're knocking it out of the park. And so we've gone live with it. We did a little press release, and so it's live. People are buying it, and it is working, and it's pretty amazing, if I do say so myself.
So that's really awesome because that's one of the problems that I find as a contractor with my technicians. And I know part of the problem. It's like we're all very much like we know the problem, but maybe not the solution. We know that our technicians just aren't presenting indoor air quality. And we know that a lot of the times, and for me especially, I know that my guys just don't understand it. And so they are the experts in the field and they want to be perceived as the experts in the field. So if they don't know everything about it, then they are less likely to present it, or if they don't know the answer. And we have a lot of engineers as clients because we have Gulfstream here and the Gulfstream Aerospace where they make the airplanes. And there's a lot of engineers that work for Gulfstream that we do work for, and they're very, very intelligent and smart people. And when they start asking questions, they want a legit answer. And so my guys, they just don't even present options when it comes to indoor air quality because they don't really understand indoor air quality. And like we brought in a dehumidifier, Santa Fe, with the outside air, and we put it in my house, and we're working on just tracking it and seeing how the indoor air quality works, humidity wise and everything else after putting this fresh air in, and seeing about duct leakage and all this other stuff. But there, even that, it's kind of it's foreign to them. It's not a capacitor to change out, and so whenever we're presenting this as an option, uh it's something that they do because I force them to do it. But whenever that's the case, I feel like that, well, I know that their closing percentage on indoor air quality is like 6%, um, out of every call that they go on. So I know that's a horrible percentage. And
Mhm.
what would you say to individuals? I mean, I love the fact that you and Rodney worked together and created this module in the new flat rate. Um, is that the only solution? I mean, what would you say to somebody if they don't happen to use the new flat rate? Like, so, like we have Service Titan Price Book Pro. Um, if that's what you're using, do we need to swap over to the new flat rate, or I mean, I know you worked with Adam, or you're working with Adam, and you're doing a training on site with them and everything, and that's really awesome. Is that what we need to be doing?
That's a fantastic question, and let's back up a little bit. So, our industry right now, and one of the points that you brought up is very valid. Is your technicians don't know how to even have that conversation or present, and unfortunately, we fall victim to marketing.
Yes,
And so that,
absolutely.
and
So
so
much so.
that's
I
our
remember when
go-to.
when you were at the HVAC school symposium and you were talking about this stuff, and I'm like, oh crap. I've told my guys to do that. Like, like
Yep.
I've had the sales guy come in and present to them, and it was hilarious listening to you because the guys that I was sitting next to, they're like, yeah, it's true. I'm like, why do I not know this? Like, yeah.
So when Dyke and Amanda Goodman approached me, they said, John, we heard that you're the go-to guy for indoor air quality, and we want to create some curriculum to get out to our contractors. And would you be interested? And I said, absolutely, I would love to do that, but I refuse to stand in front of a group of people and push products. There's plenty of guys out there doing that. 99% of the training you get is sales training on insert name of product here. So in what we do in the HVAC industry and all the skilled trades industries is we're process driven. There should be a process in place for how your CSRs answer the phone, how your guys conduct themselves on a service call, the things you do on a maintenance call, how you carry yourself, and however many points your maintenance should be. And so there's a process for everything. So we've developed this process for indoor air quality, and to your point, it does boil down to training. And my class is designed to put a foundation under the feet of technicians. I developed this training for the HVAC industry, and we go deep. And so having that foundation at least gives you some confidence to know how to have that conversation with customers. But our process, so indoor air quality, IAQ, we've broke it down to investigate, analyze, and quote. You have to do all three. They cannot be done out of order. So the investigate is our discovery phase where we go in and spend time and actually try to figure out what the problem is through testing. Once you've completed your discovery or the investigative stage, you analyze the data and you compare that data to what your clients are experiencing. And you're going to find you start drawing parallel lines. It's like, oh my goodness, they're saying that they have this symptoms and I'm finding this. That connects one line. Oh my goodness, we've got this happening and I've figured out that we've got high humidity and so we've drawn that line. Or my goodness, they're fatigued and I'm having high carbon dioxide. So you draw those parallel lines with your client. And then, and only then, are we ready to draw up a scope of work and quote the client based on investigating, analyzing the data. Now we're to that point. I coined a phrase, or I should say, I use a phrase from the medical community, and it's simply this: prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. But
So you're telling me that we just can't go in and throw a UV light in every single house and that's not going to fix it?
I'm saying yes, but do you understand that? So our industry has gone right to the prescription.
Yeah.
Boom. Hey, I've got an IAQ call. Oh, hey, throw insert name of product on your truck and go put this in. Well, we don't know what it is. And I often tell this story in my class. It's like, so, a lot of our contractors have kids or grandkids, and we love them dearly. And, outside of COVID, they're sick and got a fever and runny nose, or, just feeling miserable, and our heart just goes out. And it's like, okay, it's time to take little Johnny and Susie to the doctor. So you grab them by the hand, you get in the car, you drive to the doctor's office, and they're just feeling miserable, and your heart's just breaking for them. And you walk in, the receptionist says, "Oh, hi, Mr. Ellis, have a seat." And then the doctor pokes his head around the corner, cracks the door, and throws you a bottle of prescription and says, "Hey, give this a try. Call me back in a month."
Hey, I mean, I was in the Air Force, and I remember you go to the oh, I got a broken ankle. Here's some ibuprofen. I got a cold. Here's some ibuprofen.
Right.
Ibuprofen for everybody.
That just kind of creates an illustration. How would you feel? I'd be pissed if that's what's happening.
100%.
I'd be downright pissed. But yet we do that in our industry day in and day out. Go right to the prescription. So
So
investigate, analyze, quote.
okay, so with that being said, hey Doug, what's going on? And Josh, it was funny. He said, you get a UV light, you get a UV light. Everybody gets a UV light from Oprah Winfrey. But with that being said, what tools should our technicians be taking on site with us? I mean, I know a lot about um Nate Adams and those guys, and they talk about like going in and selling the whole diagnosis package and stuff like that. For me, that's tough because I mean, I would need to train a guy to be that specialist that goes out and sells that item when we don't get that many calls for it. And we also don't market it that way. But as a technician, what tools should they be taking on their van with them? Or should I be buying all of these tools for every single van? Like, because that can get pretty pricey too.
Well, and unfortunately, these tools can be delicate,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
they don't want to end up on the bottom of the truck underneath a vacuum pump,
Exactly.
because you know that darn well that's going to happen on
Yeah,
a busy day.
100%.
So
100%.
so no, you don't outfit every truck with these things, but there are a couple things you can do. And you know, in our industry, man, toys, we love toys,
Mhm.
and sky's the limit.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could fill a van with nice toys and
Mhm.
not have any room for equipment or anything. So
Or parts.
having that champion. So you bring up a great point. Having a guy. So
Mhm.
having a champion that understands what we're trying to do. They have to be well versed in the mechanical aspect, but also well versed in building science, because that is a huge part of what we do. And so just how deep do you want to go? And so that's entirely up to the contractor. How deep do you want to go? How much of this journey do you want to take? But so that being said, there are a couple things that you can use. I have a relationship with a company called Air Advice. In 30 minutes, you get a snapshot report. And I want to be perfectly clear, 30 minutes is not enough time, but you can now have a conversation and you have some information. And it's Mr. and Mrs. Homer, based on some national averages that comes from the National Lung Association, the EPA. What I'm finding here is some of your levels are a little high, and I'm a little concerned. However, this is only 30 minutes. I think based on this information, we should probably do a little longer term testing. But don't worry, I got some options. Would you like to go over them now? And we have options for that. So I'm gonna toggle back and forth from just what we're talking about to, hey, how the new flat rate works. But
Yeah.
even if you're not with a flat rate, this will allow you to have the conversation. Air Advice, 30 minutes, you got a report to your phone. It's dashboard with colors, and it would tell you, hey, in 30 minutes, I've got some high VOCs, carbon dioxide, my humidity. So in 30 minutes, if you're seeing this, imagine what kind of data you could gather in 3 days or a
Well,
week.
let me ask this because I know that the people listening to this, other than Doug, because Doug knows what's up. And by the way, Doug, yes, I agree with you. An organized truck, it's equals no damage, but uh, you're a very organized person, and I know that some of my guys are not organized people, so they won't stay organized anyways. But yeah, with that being said, um, what happens when you leave an Air Advice in someone's home and then magically their phone number changes or they just stop responding? Like, how do you deal with that situation? Because I know a lot of people listening have been there, and I know I've been there too. And it happened to be a friend of mine where I left this device in this house, and then he went out of town for work and then just forgot it was even in his house. And I'm like, hey man, I need to come get that device. I need to blah blah. And it took me like a month or two to get it back from him.
Well, that's more the exception, not the rule.
Okay. All right.
Um, People, I give people the benefit of the doubt. Most people
Yeah.
are very honest, and you know what, especially when you're there to help.
Yeah.
So I want to draw a line here and help our viewers understand that I did indoor air quality at a very high level for a long period of time. So when
Mhm.
my clients came to me, they were specific indoor air quality or environmental calls. So cystic fibrosis prognosis is death. They've made a lot of uh, a lot of advances in medicines and everything for that, and
Uh-huh.
I'm hopeful. COPD, same thing. I mean, eventually that's going to be their demise. I have clients that come to me with double lung transplants
So they came to you already with
already.
they knew that you were gonna provide a solution to them. And I feel like for the people who are the ones that are gonna be the hardest to get the device back from are gonna be the people who aren't really even interested. Like they had a broken air conditioner and you're like, "Hey, by the way, let me stick this in your house," and using it as like a sales tool to introduce more products versus providing a solution to somebody. And so then it's not even of a, they don't really care that much about it. So I feel
Yeah,
like
and
that's the people you're going to have the problem
that's
with.
not your avatar. We have this saying, your
Yeah.
avatar.
Hmm.
That's not your. Not everybody is your customer,
Hmm.
especially for that. And they might be like, yeah. So knowing your customer,
So
and of course,
what else are you using besides the air advice?
so I use Air Advice. I use a so that's for the short term to start that conversation.
Uh-huh.
The Zoa Haven, I can't have this without having that conversation.
Yeah.
Just fantastic. Just revolutionized our industry and indoor air quality, and being able to monitor and have reaction out of
Got one.
Yep,
Got the
there you
new
go.
little
So
switch.
I've been working with Ben, and Alex was actually at our event last week and had
Oh,
some
cool.
great conversations. Yeah, so I can't say enough about that. I use another company called Air Answers. Like Air Advice, it's a small device you leave in the house. It's got to be left for at least 3 days, but it pulls samples into a cartridge that gets sent to the lab. So unlike Air Advice, we're measuring a different parameter where we can actually speciate molds and some different things in the air.
What
And
was that
so
one called again?
it's called Air Answers.
Air
Uh,
Answers.
yep.
Okay.
So they're a great company. Again, it just depends on how deep you want to go. Of course, I've got handhelds. I've got particle scanners and moisture meters and different things. Of infrared cameras and all that as well. But just to kind of narrow down to what's in the air, those are a couple that I use.
Now,
I
do you
use
do any like blower door test or duct blasting or anything like that throughout
Oh,
your process?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So, a big part of what we do. So, I drive this home in my training. We need to identify what pollutants are in the space, what are the source, and control the source. Source control, source control, source control. Identifying pathways, the only way to do it is with a blower door.
Hmm.
And so having that tool in your arsenal is very important. I don't do a whole lot of duct blasting, although I do have one.
Hmm.
Depending on where we're at and how in depth the project is, I will at least introduce theatrical fog so I can go up and seek and destroy and seal up a system.
Yeah.
So I don't care what the number is. I just yeah,
Right. Just
but
improve it.
just improve it. And more times than not, we're going to be in my marketplace in California, we'd be redoing a duct system anyway.
Okay.
So another thing I want to say is our industry at a whole right now, our focus is that big ticket item. So we want to go after, let's replace the equipment, replace the equipment. So I have a little different approach. If you go in and target indoor air quality, that's your primary focus. And because right now we want to change equipment, and guess what? We're going to throw on a bolt-on, a sundry, an accessory, which is indoor air quality as an afterthought.
Hmm.
If you target indoor air quality as your primary focus and your solutions driven, the equipment will follow.
Yeah.
And it's an easy conversation to have. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, we've got a great scope of work. I think we've got some solid solutions. However, based on the condition and the age of your equipment, it won't support what we're trying to do, because your air conditioning system is the driving force behind what we're trying to do. It's an easy conversation to have.
Hmm.
And then that comes into play. My average IAQ ticket, now it was a California market, keep in mind. So, but my average IAQ ticket was between $35,000 and $70,000.
Whoa.
That's my average ticket. Now, this is a full scope of work where we're removing insulation, air sealing, new equipment, new ductwork, hospital grade air filtration, outside air, the whole scope, targeted. Sometimes there's some remediation involved. So that's those are my
Did y'all
average
do
ticket.
the remediation yourself, or did you have to subcontract that?
That's a great question. So it sometimes it's hard to be all things to all people.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
I'm not telling AC contractors to run out and be an insulation company.
Yeah.
But if you have the personnel, you can. There's plenty of
Yeah.
companies that do.
Oh yeah.
I'm not telling you that you need to be a crawl space encapsulation company. But if you got personnel, by all means, you can. I work with a company in Dalton, Georgia. Actually, it's Rodney's son, Dallas.
Yeah.
Man, he's knocking it out of the park. He
Yeah.
just picked up, I think, 20 fire stations doing
Wow.
remediation,
Huh.
all new ductwork, dehumidification.
Yeah.
Right. And he does crawl space encapsulation and sealing up ducts and changing. He's just knocking it out of the park. He's got the equipment to do that.
Yeah.
So, but if you're a smaller shop, you don't have the personnel. I always say have strategic partnerships with qualified, reputable companies that can come in and represent you well, that understand what it is you're trying to accomplish. That's what I did in California. I worked with an insulation company that understood when I called them, they gave me a specific guy because this is air quality. They would create, ingress and egress, vacuum out the attic, air seal, insulate, do all that stuff for me.
So they actually vacuumed out the old insulation. They didn't just throw new insulation on top of the old stuff.
No. We would vacuum out. I love working after those guys.
Yeah.
Clean slate. You didn't have your lunch up there. But understanding what it is you're trying to accomplish, having these, I had a great asbestos abatement company that I worked. Now I had to go through a few to find the right ones, and that process of working with people and interviewing them and understanding. Had a great CIH, certified industrial hygienist that I worked through, and so having those people that you can your go-to people is on a team is really gets you a long way. And here's the cool thing, I just mentioned a CIH, a certified industrial hygienist. So when a lot of contractors are scared. I've got this client. She's real sensitive. She's got some medical problems.
Yeah,
they're scared.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that knowledge, expertise, and experience behind you starts with the first job. So by working and understanding and making informed decisions based on gathering data, that fear can be set aside. So I work with a CIH, and the cool thing about a CIH is when they're done doing their testing, they write the scope of work.
Oh yeah, so you don't have to worry about that part of it.
So we just shifted liability. Now you still have to be good at what you do.
Yeah.
And so if they recommend that we do some remediation, you'll read that scope of work and say, wow, I think I could do this. And you can. But so then that once they write the scope of work, it gets followed. They come in and do testing afterwards, make sure that everything's good, and you just follow along. And it can be very,
that's cool.
Good way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So how would you say someone should go about getting training performed? Like where do we go from here whenever it comes to training for this?
Yeah. So there's a saying, you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
Ignorance is bliss. As soon as you know you don't know, that requires an action step. Okay. That action step is gaining knowledge, expertise, and experience, and through training. So once you get training and you put it into practice, then it's cognizant. You just know. Yeah. And so, but it has to start with training. And during that training, my training, if you will, you're going to find out what you don't know. But as soon as you know, then that requires an action step. Now, not all HVAC contractors that come through my class know how to use a blower door or understand building science. Well, then that incorporates some training. I'm a big proponent of measuring static pressure and airflow and system performance and measured BTUs and all that stuff. Not a lot of contractors understand or know how to do that. Well, hey, now it's time to get some training. I always point them towards NCI. We've got Jim Davis, the best combustion guy in the United States, at our disposal. And then he's got some of his guys like David Richardson and other people like that. Hey, go get some training and then put it into practice.
The first time I went to an NCI training, I left there thinking, man, I have done it wrong for so many years.
I think we've all come out of an NCI training saying that, and that's okay, because you only knew what you knew and you didn't know what you didn't know. Yep, they have absolutely changed how I did business. Many years ago, I flew to San Jose, California, and took a air balance class from Rob Falk, and totally changed my perspective. And then I've taken all their training: economizer, commercial air balance, system performance, commercial system performance. Duct optimization is a great course for residential guys, and understanding airflow and how you may not have to replace a whole darn duct system, that you can go in and surgically change a duct system to get that system to perform the way it's supposed to. So great courses. Can't say enough about them.
And David Holt, he's a great dude too. So
yeah, he's an okay Joe. Hi, David.
That's funny. So if we want to go through your training courses, how do we get to that point?
Yeah, so it's offered through the Amana Brand Business Academy and the Goodman Business Toolbox. This is the training component of the company. It's also offered through Daikin. I had the pleasure of working with Dr. Mark Jackson. He was in charge of product development for their Clean Comfort and IAQ. He's very instrumental in the Air Intelligence IAQ product line for Daikin. So it's also offered through Daikin. So that's the easiest way. Here's the one thing: Mr. Akama, bright guy. He's Japanese, obviously. I had the pleasure to meet him, and I spoke to him through an interpreter. But his philosophy: he doesn't care if you're an Amana Goodman dealer. He don't care. I've gone out and done my training to Carrier dealers, Lennox dealers, York dealers. Mr. Kama says, hey, I don't care if we're your first choice. I don't care if we're your second choice. We just want to be at the table. We just want to have a conversation. So don't get hung up on the brand, because it's not about the brand. It's about the training. And they're giving an olive branch to anybody. It's like, hey, come and take the training, and maybe that'll change your mind about our philosophy. It's pretty darn neat, because there are some big name companies out there, and it's like, hey, you're either married to me or we're not. And so that's their philosophy. So that's who the training is through. And then, of course, if you've got any questions about the new flat rate and how that works, be more than happy to answer those questions too. And they'll take you on a test drive, no obligation, no fee. They'll come in and show you how the app works, take you through all the modules, take you through the IAQ module. So since we're talking about the IAQ module real quick, so we've got a discovery portion that breaks it down, all of it: air safety, building safety, mechanical safety. And so we're looking at all the components, which would include blower door testing, air monitoring, and all that stuff. We have a containment page. And so people don't think about containments when you're dealing with an acute respiratory or environmental type of client. And I had to learn the hard way. And it's like, as contractors, we're like, hey, let's throw down a couple drop cloths and let's get started. No, that you have to look at that completely different. And I learned the hard way. And so we've got it broken down from basic covering everything with plastic and or drop cloths to a full ingress egress tunnel with zipper doors, sticky mats, negative pressure, filtration, the whole night, wearing the outfit. We've got it broken down from the very simple all the way to the and does that containment need to be taken down and put up every day? That's another big one. I learned the hard way.
How do you know if it comes to that level of needing that kind of protection?
Ask.
Okay.
Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, we're going to get started on this work. It's pretty in depth. We have several trades coming in and out. I have some options. At what level of protection do you need? and
Okay.
involve them in that process.
Okay.
And oh my goodness, my doctor says I can't be exposed to anything. I want the, if you will, the platinum, where I want you to build a full ingress and egress. Tell you what, we'll go stay at a hotel while you do the work.
Okay. Okay.
Because I learned the hard way and I didn't do that. And then I had to pay somebody in to come in and wipe down the whole house from top to bottom.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
My bottom line.
Uh-huh.
So
100%.
understand, involve the client. Hey, what level of protection should, and based on our conversation, hey, I recommend that maybe we go a silver here.
Yeah.
And that should be pretty solid. Or in extreme cases, they might need the full blown ingress egress. So we were able to include them in that conversation.
Okay.
And then we go through crawl space encapsulation. We have pages for that, for air sealing and insulation, and dehumidification, humidification, ventilation, filtration, duct modification, duct sealing. We've pretty much encompassed all of it. And then we've again, we're not a pricing company, but we've kind of guided our clients along, make them understand these jobs take longer.
Yeah.
We've even got an IAQ maintenance page, because a maintenance for a high level IAQ job is not going to look at the same as your comfy, cozy, maintenance club. It's just not. The more frequent visits, the number of pieces of equipment and components that you need to maintain, and then having the Zoa Haven in place so you can watch these things.
Yep.
All that changes when you're working with acute.
Do you recommend the Haven, the IAQ package? Do you recommend us trying to offer this the actual monitoring system as part of that maintenance package? So like build it into the maintenance package and then just say, okay, we're going to put this device in here and this can be included in your maintenance.
I build it into the solution.
Okay.
And so because we're really going to great lengths to figure out the problem through our investment, and now we're at the solutions, and we've got all these things. We need to monitor this and we need to look at it. And so then the contractor is privy to the information that the Zoa is giving along with the customer. And so that now that's part of the solution, and that helps us with maintenance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree 100%. The thing about it is like, I got an alert this morning about my VOC levels were all out of whack. And so immediately I'm like trying to investigate what's going on here. And it's good, because otherwise, like, you really don't know you don't know what you don't know until you know. And so it's that the alerts that I get, and we get like a high humidity level sensor going off. And then, we go out into the kitchen and somebody's boiling a pot of water for pasta, and so it's like, okay, that's why the humidity level is higher here. Turn the fan on, turn the exhaust fan on above the stove, that type of stuff. But George asked a good question here. BPI certified for 6 years, building envelope and IDL. Can't seem to get anyone interested in our market. What would you do? I see this a lot where you get too technical and you start talking over people's heads, and they're just like, I'm gonna stick my head in the sand. I'm not really gonna worry too much about it. What do you do in that scenario?
Hey, George, great question. And this has been an age-long problem. People trying to find their way with, we get excited, HVAC guys are some of the smartest guys I know, but you know what? We turn wrenches faster than anybody. We just want to fix stuff. And so it's exciting to have this at our disposal. I've been doing building science since before it was cool to do building science.
Yeah.
and so I went through all the BPI training too. I had the distinct pleasure of working with some of the best in the BPI realm of things in California. Now, Nate Adams will make fun of me. He's like, "Oh, you dry climate guys." Hello, Nate. but so the why never changes, and physics don't change, just the how. So how I did stuff in California was totally different than how Nate did stuff in Ohio, but the why never changed. So taking the information that you have And it's no different than your BPI certification is no different than having your EPA certification or an airbound certification. It's a tool in your quiver for you to use accordingly. Don't put the emphasis on that. Put the emphasis back on you as the expert
Mm.
that just happens to be BPI certified.
So what
So
do you
you,
say about people that like how do you get them how do you get the consumer interested in this information other than um like obviously talking about it constantly, but people like for people that don't know that they even need, good indoor air quality. Some people they feel like the inside of their house is safer than it is outside. And a lot of people don't realize how much stuff is growing in their home. How do you even get to that point to where people are like, okay, let me call George about this because I'm having this respiratory issues and maybe it's actually from inside my house.
that's a great question. And I in my business place in California spent $0 on advertising.
Yeah,
I
see, that's
was
crazy.
I was 100% referral, but I built a reputation as that guy.
How
And
long
then
did that take to do that?
well, it took a few years.
Okay.
But in the meantime, I'm just sharpening my skills. I had a great team. Uh, uh, you, so Ted Kidd said, "Hey, man, is this scalable?" And it's
Hmm.
like, well, my goodness, I guess it is, but it took me a lot of shaking hands and getting in front of people, meeting the right people.
Right.
So my associate Gene, man, that guy just blew up my career because he was a respiratory pharmacist by trade. Had a degree in pharmacology from the University of Oklahoma. He actually owned a brick and mortar pharmacy,
Wow.
got out of that because he was tired of big pharma, and
Hmm.
then went into pharmacy auditing where he'd go and audit pharmacies, and then finally ended up with me and some of my constituents that were in the building science realm of things. Says, John, I really want to start helping people. We guided him along with some training, and then he would go out and actually do environmental audits, a lot like what we do now. But a lot of what I learned came from him. And then he had a relationship with doctors, and because he's a doctor, they're a doctor, and that whole the HEPA rules,
Yeah.
and they could talk doctor talk. And so it was very unique. Is it scalable? Absolutely, yes. It just takes meeting that right person that will understand what you're trying to accomplish holistically by cleaning up home environments. But I had a relationship at the LA Children's Hospital, LA Children's Medical Center,
Hmm.
UCLA Medical Center, USC Medical Center,
Really?
several prominent doctors in LA, Beverly Hills area in oncology, immunology, and uh, allergists.
Yeah.
So once Gene created dialogue, I got to go in and sit down and be in the room. And
So
then you
here, let me ask you a question about that because what, as a parent, I would never want to recommend something that's not actually going to work for a child. And you mentioned the children's hospitals and stuff like that. Um, how do I know without a shadow? Because like you said at the beginning of the show, there's most of the times we've been trained by salesmen, which
Mhm.
they're full of crap. I mean, it is what it is. And so how do I know that this is actually going to work? It's going to solve their problem without a shadow of a doubt, because most of my training came from someone who is trying to hawk this UV light on me, and the UV light's not going to solve the problems on everything, you know?
So that's a great question. And again, I mentioned how contractors are scared
Yeah, I mean, that's
because you
it. That's it, 100%. That's a fear factor for me because, like, if somebody came into me and said, "Hey, look, if you put this in, your kid's gonna be better," and then all of a sudden my child develops cancer, I'm gonna think I'm going after that guy. You know what I mean? Even if it has zero to do with what he did, you know.
yeah.
So I want to make sure that I'm very clear and risk management at the same time.
And you bring up a great point. So, we've all been playing the energy game for a long time. I was involved in Energy Upgrade California
Yeah.
from its conception, and how you go in. You have to be very careful about benchmarking. And so they were, and of course, all these programs are prescriptive. A plus B plus C has to equal D, and there's your savings. But nothing's further than the truth.
Right.
Unfortunately, and excuse me, any building science guys, BPI guys in the audience, but the building science community says, and I'm going to quote this, that a energy efficient home is automatically a healthier home, and it's even in print. And there can be nothing further from the truth
Huh.
than that. And so understand, and I say this, I try to be as nice as I can about it. No, an energy efficient home where you go through your prescriptive A plus B plus C is not automatically a healthier home. More times than not, it goes the other direction.
Because it gets so tight that it holds everything in there, or is that what you're saying?
That's another thing. One of the problems we have now, we're beating the daylights out of the loads on buildings.
Mm-hmm.
And so our capacities are coming down.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've got smaller pieces of equipment doing a great job at thermal comfort and conditioning, but we're not getting air exchanges per hour.
Yep.
We're finding that we're having a tough time on the latent side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the best design system. And so we're getting longer run times, but it's just the capacities. Right? So we have trouble on the latent side. So now we're bringing in dehumidification. So there's several, and having a tight structure. And then bringing things in that are off-gassing or causing pollutants or different behavioral things or activities, and there's no place for it to go. And
you're
so
right. The house
levels,
is so tight. Then you bring in something that has this high off-gas VOCs, and then all of a sudden, all those VOCs are staying inside that tight home.
But not to get too far off track, back to your original question, how do you go in with some kind of assurance and not back yourself into a legal corner?
Yeah.
So we have to understand that benchmarking is tough. And you have to be very matter of a fact based. And I had enough jobs behind me to know that the results that we're seeing, and the results have been phenomenal. We've got people going off of medication, quality of life is better, just a whole laundry list of positive things that come out of the projects that we do. And so I did a job in California, and it was after a wildfire came through. House was inundated with ash. It was under negative pressure. The wife was having a terrible time in and out of the hospital. Ash has certain like arsenic and some acidic properties, not to mention the carbon and different things. Put her into a tailspin. She was having to live at her in-laws' house, but they spent $60,000 in medical bills trying to figure out what was going on with her. She spent $70,000 with us to fix her house, and she was fantastic. She was able. They wanted to build their family, so she was able to have a couple more kids. Where they put all that off because medical and health problems within the home.
Yeah. So it's not just the cost of the actual repairs to their home, but it's that peace of mind, knowing that, and then also not having to pay for the extra medical bills.
Yes, going off medications, all that stuff. So again, having that confidence in what you're doing only comes with practice.
Yeah. Well, what would you say
training
to somebody like that's just starting out, like George? Like, so you don't have a ton of that kind of stuff in your background. Like when you first started out, how did you have that conversation with people? Because at that point, you didn't have all this massive background of success stories. And then also, how many times out of, like, I know you can't give me, maybe you can, an exact percentage, but how many times have you put something in like $30,000 worth of stuff and they didn't really see a difference? Like, not that they didn't see a difference, but there was no wow story attached to it. You know what I mean? Like it didn't, like the house was safer, the house was cleaner, but like there was nothing to really go back to them and then have them give you this really awesome story. Like, how often does that happen? Because I feel like that happens for me. Like, we put in this and we test this, we put the house under positive pressure, and it's great and everything, but then they're like, that's what we expect now, I guess. Maybe like it's not this awesome story because this personal, they didn't come off medicines and stuff like that. So there's not this wow story attached to it.
And So not every client is going to be this wow, this wow story or a case study, or
Hmm.
this is going to be my,
Right.
my media story, if you will. So they're
Exactly.
not all going
Exactly.
to be like that, but you're going to have victories. And so we're kind of focused on indoor air quality, but I want you to understand we're changing people's environments completely. So
True.
when we're tackling moisture problems and things like that, we are changing environment. So it's air quality, but it's environmental quality too.
Yeah.
And so just going in and doing those stories and like, hey, what you've done has tremendously helped my family, and we're where we need to be. It's not a big wow story, but it's a success. And,
Hmm.
and I'm going to tell you right now, I've had in my career, I had one that we did a ton of work, and it didn't get her to where she needed to be.
Hmm.
Yeah, and so
What happened in that scenario? Like, I want to hear like your like we screwed up story. Have you ever had one of those? Because I have. I
no,
have them all the time. Whereas like,
it
uh,
wasn't we screwed up story. There
yeah,
was more going on than I think
everybody realized.
she wanted to admit to. I
Okay,
think I
yeah.
think there was some denial there,
Uh-huh.
and but we definitely changed the numbers and the statistics that before and after were night and day on
Hmm.
where she was and where we took her to.
Hmm.
But that wasn't, I think she had a little more going on with like internally, I mean, we look
Oh,
at the
gotcha, gotcha,
external.
gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the environment definitely was changed for the better. I
Hmm.
don't think the impact on her was what she wanted. Now, was it a failure? No,
Right,
not
right, right.
exactly. Are the numbers say otherwise?
How do you avoid that in the future, though? I mean, I'm
You
sure
can't.
you changed some sort of policy. You didn't change anything as far as because I know, like, anytime we have a tough conversation with any, it doesn't have to be indoor air quality related, but just in general, we have a tough conversation with someone. Like we had one where we had a guy went out, an emergency call came in. He had a bad capacitor. Our schedule was booked already for the day, but the guy lived close to where one of our service technicians lived. So he took off and went there real fast. It was a bad capacitor. He swapped the capacitor out, charged him a couple $100, and then left. Well, the guy gave us a bad review because he was like, the guy was only here for 15 minutes, changed out the capacitor, and it was $200 or whatever. And uh, for me, we didn't build the quality in the job to start with, um, but the guy went there with a book schedule already and was just trying to fit him in there. But it changed the policy for us. Now you must inspect the entire system. It's an hour to do a diagnosis on this home because they paid for a diagnosis. They paid a consultation fee. So now you're going to consult them on their entire home, no matter if it's a bad capacitor or not. So that's kind of the policy that we changed because of that 1-star review. Um, did anything change at all because of her situation whenever you, after the fact, like, did you step back and say, all right, so now when we're doing the pre-report call or the setup or we're doing the diagnosis, we need to make sure we're checking X, Y, and Z also?
No, not really. That's a great question, and I'm obviously
I'm sure it happened
thinking
in the
about
past, so
it.
you have to think about it. But
Yeah,
I just wonder if, for me, so for me, that with that fear factor that you were talking about earlier, how do I know when to change what I'm doing? Because we're going to have that one, obviously. So we build rules for the majority, not the exception. Obviously, she was an exception to the rule,
yeah,
and you don't want to build rules around the exception. And I get that
right.
100%. How do I know when? Because say I'm just starting out, how do I know that she's an exception and not the rule?
That's therein is a tough one.
Right?
Along with what we do, we have to have that conversation about there are going to be those that come to you that are hypochondriacs. I've had a
Yeah.
couple,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it took me a minute to
Uh-huh.
figure that out. Now I can identify them a little easier,
Mhm.
and then it's okay that that's not your customer. Not
Oh,
everybody
absolutely.
is your
That's not their
customer.
avatar.
But the story is compelling. When they come to you with a story, it's very compelling, and then you start to kind of look at the layers of what's
Hmm.
going on. And so I've had a couple, and those are hard. But you know what? My first job, I wasn't confident in what we were going to do, and everybody's going to have those
Hmm.
willies. You're gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna have those feelings. But again, with training and some confidence in your training, trusting your testing equipment and what it's telling you. I've had some data come back to me. I'm like, how can this be? I don't understand.
Hmm.
But then with a little bit of time and seeing how it plays out time and time again, it's like, okay, now these numbers start to make a little more sense. It's like, it comes with just getting in and just having that experience. One thing for sure is when you're dealing with these customers, a lot of times they are
Hmm.
emotionally invested into what's going on in their life. And
Yeah.
when kids are involved,
Oh, yeah.
whoo, it's
Yeah.
up here. So they
Hmm.
are emotionally invested. So when you come in, care,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
Have compassion and some empathy and listen to what they have to say because they'll be more than happy to tell you. And that's the biggest part of the discovery phase of what we do is I send a questionnaire out, I have them answer it, and then I sit down. And that sit down meeting, once you gain a little confidence from them, they'll open up and tell you, and just care and genuinely listen and take notes. And then once that now you can start comparing data to what they've told you, and just genuinely listen, because I guarantee you. More times than not, you're not the first contractor that's been there that tried to sell them a bill of goods who didn't
Yeah.
even listen, went right to the prescription, right? Oh, I got the answer,
How?
but
Well, let me ask you this. Sorry for interrupting you. Because you're exactly right. I've been the second or third or fourth contractor that came out there, and they've all said, "Look, my daughter's bedroom is hot all the time. The sun rises right into her window and it stays there all day long, and then it sets in her other window. Her bedroom's in the corner, and they have one 5-inch flex duct that runs to the room, and it's like, well, I mean, there's part of your problem right there. Like, and we have this and this, and I mean, they're like, well, you're the first person that's actually listened to me about the daughter's room. Everybody else wanted to sell me a new AC unit.
right.
And so you're absolutely correct on that. But something you mentioned there that I want to circle back to is the questionnaire. How far in advance were you sending out the questionnaire, and how often were they actually completing it? Obviously, because they knew who you were and you had the reputation of what you did solving the problems, they probably took it a little bit more serious. But I'm thinking to myself, if I send out this questionnaire, how far in advance should I send it out before the appointment, and should I be a stickler as to whether it was answered or not?
That's a great question. So you don't just arbitrarily send questionnaires out to every call. So you
Okay.
have to understand that you had a CSR picked up on it, or that was the call, or your maintenance tech or your service tech picked up on it.
Hmm.
Hey, they had an air purifier sitting in the corner. We had a conversation. Allergies came up. So part of that culture within your company has to be built around identifying opportunities.
Hmm.
And so if you start sending questionnaires, it sounds salesy. Oh no, my goodness, here it
Exactly.
comes.
Exactly.
But if there's a genuine need for your services, then the questionnaire is important. I like to send it ahead of time because the the couple can fill it out together. A lot of
Hmm.
times, what as technicians, we're dealing with the lady of the house, and that's
A lot of times,
fine.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, but then you need to go ahead and let them be involved with their significant other and
Hmm.
fill it out together. I like to have them do that because then they can take their time. I
True.
found out if we do it on site, they're just like it's like when you go somewhere and they went
Uh-huh.
to fill out, you're just like hurrying up checking boxes. But
Hmm.
no, some thought needs to go into it, and it goes a long way. And it's something that I've come up with versus over time and asking the right questions. And then I have another questionnaire that goes a little deeper. It's actually a medical that helps identify chemical sensitivities. Not everybody gets that. I use it sparingly because it does come from the medical community. and it's pretty in depth too. And I actually encourage them when they fill this out to take it to their physician and have them look at it as well. They might not be aware that it's out there.
Oh,
I
okay.
got it. I got it through Gene. It is absolutely fantastic. It comes from research in the medical
Yeah.
community. So,
And
yep,
that helps bring in the medical advice also. And so it's not this HVAC sales technician person that's trying to hawk this equipment on me. My physician actually said, "Oh, that's a good question. Blah blah blah. Here's the answer." And so yeah, I love that how you brought that in full circle and everything.
yep.
Um, Last question here. We're run over an hour here. The George asks, "What are your thoughts on CPS indoor air quality Smart Pro monitor versus Air Advice?" Um,
Uh, I found the CPS isn't all that accurate.
mm. Yeah, I
Um,
have a flow hood from CPS, and sometimes I like to move it just a hair. And it was the cheap one. It was exactly like we were talking about earlier, where you put all this equipment on vans and they get messed up. It was one of those ones where I was like, "Hey, let's put it on the van to get a quick baseline, not a super accurate data." But I did find that it changed a lot, the measurements.
Sure. I'm on a lot of forums out there on both like LinkedIn and Facebook, and a lot of guys, my peers have taken the CPS for a ride, and they too weren't happy with the data. Now, it's like, well, any data is better than no data
Mhm.
to a point, but
Right.
dumb data doesn't makes us have dumb decisions.
Very true.
And so it is what it is. It's a very inexpensive monitoring device. The Air Advice, they've got some good components. Air Advice has been around for a long time. I got the
Yeah.
beta test like 20 years ago,
Hmm.
their first one that came out. So they've got a lot of money and time and research invested into their components. So it's not the end all be all. There's other things out there. I'm a firm believer in handhelds, but then when you start having handhelds that are $5,000 each,
Yeah.
that starts,
Exactly.
Lighthouse and Gray Wolf and PB Ray. I mean, those are all fantastic tools, but when you have one in your hand and it's 5 grand and then it's only measuring a couple things, and then you figure out you need 4 or 5 of those. And if you want to be that guy, all for it. I mean, I'm totally, I love
Yeah.
toys,
Yeah.
and I've got a few myself, but for most of us, that's a pretty big jump if we want to get into the indoor air quality discipline of things. So good question, George.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, George. And thank you so much, John, for coming on the show and answering all the questions that I have pertaining to this. And I know that there's going to be listeners that have a lot more questions, and I'm super excited to get them connected with you. What's the best way for them to connect with you and learn more about you and what you have going on?
Well, I'm okay. It's a risky thing, but I'm okay putting out my phone number because I get calls from all over the place. And people asking me some great questions, and I help walk them through it. I'm in legacy mode right now. I've had a
Yeah.
long career. This industry's been great to me. I've actually retired once, and then came out of retirement to do this. I was like, this is just I just love what I do. So my consulting business, I actually can go out in the field with contractors who have clients with some environmental respiratory issues where this might be a little bit above your pay grade. You want to make sure you're doing the right thing. And
Mm.
what I do is I charge a fee. I come out, I bring my testing tools with me,
Oh,
and
cool.
we can go through the house. We can use that as a on-site training. I
Yeah.
can put tools in your hands and let's take some numbers and experience that. I can have the conversation with the client, and then we can have the sit down, and you can observe and watch how we have the conversation and how the whole thing unfolds. And then it'll be up to you once we create a scope of work. It'll be up to you to go ahead and quote that, because I don't know everybody's marketplace.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did that with just uh, kind of recently with a client. I mean,
Mhm.
a contractor went through my class in Houston. Had this client girl was wearing an iron lung, which is a prosthetic that helps her breathe.
Wow.
We went out there, spent the whole day, gathered data, created a scope of work, had the conversation with the client. They quoted it and called me 2 weeks later and said, "John, we just closed the job," and it was just under $60,000.
Wow.
The equipment was only 3 years old, so no new equipment.
Wow. That's crazy.
All new ductwork, dehumidification, outside air, hospital grade air filtration, new controls, portable unit in the girls' room, all that. I mean, and it had to be done in a very controlled way with ingress and egress, not full containment, but very careful on how they did it. And it was a great experience. And that was great for me to actually have them experience that as well.
Yeah.
So I do offer that. So my phone number is 505-652-8119. More than happy to answer questions. I love working with contractors all over the United States.
Awesome, John. Man, I really appreciate it. I appreciate you spending some time with us today. I know you have a crazy busy schedule.
Yeah. But it's good. Like you said, I'm with A-Team Adam tomorrow and the next day, training up his guys here. So he's excited about taking this journey as well. So
oh, yeah. I can only imagine. Cool. Absolutely. And if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to John. Reach out to me. I'll get you connected with John if you forget his number or anything. But all the stuff will be in the show notes as well. But I hope you have a wonderful and safe week until we talk again next time. Thank you again for watching the Service Business Mastery Podcast. It is a podcast focused on service business owners, managers, and technicians who are considering becoming business owners themselves. Until we talk again next time, stay safe out there. See you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Service Business Mastery. Now that you are equipped with essential business advice from this impactful conversation, you are one step closer to becoming the successful owner of your dreams. If this episode has been helpful to your business journey, don't forget to subscribe to the show, leave a rating, and share it with other owners as well. Visit servicebusinessmastery.com to learn more.